Welcome back. You're still watching SA Today, and we're telling your story at the moment. And South African Airways former CEO Sizakele Mzimela took to the stand at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Mzimela gave evidence on the events that led to the SAA terminating its Johannesburg-Mumbai route. And she told the Commission that the board had raised some concerns over the urgency to close the route. Well, to tell us a little bit more about what happened today, I'm now joined by our journalist who's been watching this story quite carefully over some time now. Mbalenhle Mthetwa, thanks so much for joining us. Okay, so quite a lot that a former CEO can contribute, I guess, to this conversation. So she was an important witness. What was she able to talk about? Let's start with governance, because that came up even in the President's address in Parliament today about the governance issues in SOEs.
Yes, governance. Well, basically, when the Commission started this morning, we heard that her evidence was going to center around governance. And she started off by explaining what governance was. And she said that this was basically, it meant that, everyone had a clear role, everyone had a clear role of the, a clear view, a clear definition, my apologies, a clear definition of the role they played within the organization. And this also also meant that the board also had a very defined role in what they did. And she basically spoke about how, governance is basically a framework that ensures fairness and transparency within the organization. And then she went on to compare governance under two ministers. So she was CEO when Barbara Hogan was dismissed from her position in October 2010. And she was then replaced by Malusi Gigaba in November 2010. And she was basically comparing the two eras. And she was saying that under Barbara Hogan, communication lines were very clear. She spoke to the minister, spoke to the board, and herself, Sizakele Mzimela, spoke to the DG as the CEO of SAA. And obviously and she said that all the communication that came from Hogan was always formal, and she said that, information just flowed very freely, and because of that, there was transparency within the organization. However, compared to Gigaba's term, she said that, there was a breakdown in communication and a breakdown in information, in the sense that, there were no clear lines. People who had no interest in, the organization were asking for documents that they shouldn't have really asked for, or for information that they really did not need to have access to. And she said, that basically led to a breakdown of communication between, the shareholder and being the Department of Public Enterprises.
Really compromised essentially during Minister Gigaba's tenure. But then there was, of course, that controversial closing down of the SAA route Johannesburg to Mumbai. That came up in conversation in the testimony.
Yes, that did. So she said she first found out about this, the decision rather, or that the board was actually considering to close this route during a subcommittee meeting. And she was asked to review the route and basically come back and report back. And she said that the board was rather concerned at the time about the urgency surrounding this whole issue, saying that, this route is not the most loss-making route. There are other loss-making routes. And she said that in her observation, she had found, and the board also agreed with her, that, this route was very strategic for SAA, in the sense that it was the fastest route between Asia, connecting route rather between Asia and South America. Now, they were looking to grow their South America, route. And obviously that route basically fed into, the South America route. So that it was strategic in that sense. And that's why the board was rather concerned as to why there was a sense of urgency. And two, they also raised questions about why is Jet Airways was the only airline that they were considering to do a code share with. So obviously the suggestion was that they needed to terminate this route and then enter into a code share with Jet Airline, which would mean that they would be able to advertise and on the route, but the passengers would then go on to Jet Airways instead of SAA. And basically she explains to the Commission that Jet Airways had come with the suggestion that they needed to completely pull out of the route so that they could take over the route.
And SAA pull out of the route.
Yes, SAA pull out of the route and they take over the route. And she was basically just saying that, you know, the board had resolved that they shouldn't get out of the route, pull out of the route, because it is a strategic route. And unfortunately, during meetings, she painted a picture as though they were being pressured into basically pulling out. She spoke about 2 meetings. In the one meeting, she said she was very surprised and concerned that a Jet Airways executive was present at that meeting. The meeting was with then Minister of Public Enterprises.
This is Mr. Goyal now.
Yes.
So we've got this man who comes in, and I believe that there was some tension in terms of his attitude and the way that he positioned himself. One would almost think that the minister was taking instruction from this Mr. Goyal. So
this is the particular meeting that I'm actually referring to, where, you know, Naresh Goyal comes and, you know, addresses, you know, the SAA executives, and he basically indicated his unhappiness with how SAA was delaying the process, and he was basically telling them that they needed to pull out, almost as though you're saying you need to pull out with immediate effect. This is a decision that's already been made. You guys are dragging your feet, delaying the process and dragging your feet over a decision that has already been made. You need to get out so we can actually take it over, and we are best positioned to take over this route. And she basically notes that, you know, his tone was rather instructive, and she also notes that at the time Minister of Public Enterprises Malusi Gigaba did not intervene and basically, you know, ask this gentleman not to be so instructive or anything like that. If anything, the deputy minister was the one who actually, you know, intervened and said, you know, we that's not how you're going to speak or address this meeting. Yes.
All right. So, what do we know about Jet Airways? Why is it so controversial? Is it connected to people that we know?
I think a Google search will basically take you to, you know, a number of articles that basically link Jet Airways with the Guptas. And basically, you know, you see, she basically refers to 2 meetings, the one that I've just spoken about and the second one, that basically paints a picture of them being literally put under pressure to actually pull out of this route and give it to Jet Airways, because there's a second meeting that they were summoned to, which was in Cape Town, and when they got to the meeting, one of the people who was in attendance was Siabonga Mahlangu, if I'm not Siabonga Mahlangu, yes, who was Malusi Gigaba's advisor at the time, and he basically took over the meeting, and he was very instructive as well. He became Naresh Goyal in this meeting, and he was instructive, telling them that, you know, he's tired of executives that don't want to take instructions, and he was saying that the SAA needed to pull out of this route and stop wasting taxpayers' money. And at some point, you know, she also notes that Gigaba did not intervene yet again in this meeting, and when he was pressed to basically, you know, say something, he just literally said that, you know, he would like SAA and Jet Airways to find each other, and then presented Naresh Goyal yet again to come in to the meeting yet again. And, you know, so it's almost that whole thing. And he said that he was basically, this was all in the interest of helping them to find each other, you know. So, but you get the sense that they were almost pressured into the decision.
Okay. Well, it seems that there's still much more to unfold in our beleaguered airline. Mbali, thanks very much indeed for watching the story for us and giving us an update on some of the things that came out today. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right.